What's going on, folks? Welcome back to the channel. I'm sitting out here in the garage rigging up some rods for a fishing trip I got coming up tomorrow, and I thought I would shoot a little video on one of Tennessee's best kept secrets for catching smallmouth in the wintertime, and that is the Damiki Rig. What a Damiki Rig is not necessarily a rig per se, like a Texas rig or a Carolina rig. It's a bait. And that bait consists of a little plastic swim bait and a jig head. Now, the reason why we've coined it the Damiki Rig is because of the bait that we typically throw on it. That's the Damiki Armor Shad. Now, where a Damiki Rig shines is cold water, deep water smallmouth. We're fishing these things off long tapering points. We're fishing around bluff walls, places like that where when those bass get really deep, I'm talking 20 plus feet all the way down to, I've caught them as deep as 80 feet on the Damiki Rig. Now, what a Damiki Rig consists of, like I was saying before, is a Damiki Armor Shad. Typically I use the 3-inch. That's the most common size, and it's the most common size because it works. They make it in a 2.5 inch, a 3-inch, and a 5-inch in some colors. 3-inch, stick with that. That's the best in my opinion. There's several different heads that you can throw a Damiki Rig on, but I typically only use one or two. My favorite by far, though, is the LedgeHead lures drop head. And you hear a lot of pros that call it drop fishing and not Damiki fishing. And the reason why is because a lot of them are not affiliated with Damiki in any way. So they don't want to be, I guess, promoting a Damiki rig. So they just call it drop fishing. But by far, LedgeHead lures, 3/8 ounce. They make it in a couple different colors. And we'll get into color in just a little bit. But 3/8 ounce, 2-aught. And it's got a little sickle hook. This is something that we're going to be throwing on really light line to reach down those really deep fish that are schooling on bait fish. So let's talk a little bit about the colors and the baits themselves and the different heads that I use and the color of head and why I use each color. So, by far, the #1 color, this is the Damiki Armor Shad 3-inch in white silver. As you can see here, it's basically white with silver flake in it, and it looks like a shad. And anything that looks like a shad, those smallmouth are going to eat it because, I mean, that's what they're targeting. Now, they make a couple different colors in the LedgeHead lures drop head. This is a gray. And I actually have, that's a V&M drop shad, or vertical shad is what that is on that one. But the gray and the white are the two main colors. I like pairing the different color to the color bait that I'm using. So like this is a more natural hue in this vertical shad here. So I would pair it up with the gray head because it matches a little bit better. This is my second color of the Damiki Armor Shad that I like a lot, and that's the chartreuse blue. I think they call it SB Chart is what they call it, but it's a bold color, and this is something that I use anytime I'm around like smallmouth that are really aggressive, because really aggressive smallmouth love chartreuse. I mean, that's why the chartreuse and blue Kitech is so crazy on South Austin. But pair that up with a white head, it's just a big bold profile, and if the fish are really aggressive, that big bold color is just something they're just going to attack and eat and just eat it up. But the third color of the Damiki Armor Shad that I use a whole lot is the American Shad, and it is more of a translucent. It's got a gray back and like a translucent clear belly. And I use this anytime the fish are funky, they're wanting like an extremely natural presentation in the water, or if I've got like a really high bluebird sky. And that's typically when the fish can see the best. So this one really is like a tone down of the three colors and really tends to me to get more bites in those tougher conditions like that. But if I had to have just one, it would be that white silver because I mean, it looks like a shad, and anytime a bait looks like a shad, a smallmouth is going to eat it. That's just their nature. Now, let's jump into the line that I throw on it, and a little secret that you guys may not know. The line that I use almost exclusively to fish the Damiki Rig is Sunline FC Sniper 7-pound test. I like the really light line because, for one, it increases the fall rate of the bait. So if you've got really heavy, like 10-pound line, it's going to take that bait longer to get down to those depths. And when you're fishing in 50, 60 feet of water, it takes a while for that bait to get down there. And the smaller diameter line allows that bait to fall quicker. Talk a little bit about rods and reels. I exclusively use like 2 rods for this, but really any medium light spinning rod is going to be great. The only thing that I would recommend is sticking to that straight fluorocarbon. I know a lot of us guys, me included, and actually one of these options does have braid on it, throw braid to leader on our spinning rods almost exclusively, and that's great. I mean, braid fishes so much nicer on a spinning rod. I will agree with that 100%. But this is one technique where I would say that the straight fluorocarbon typically gets me more bites. I think they see the braid and it kind of cues them off of it. Like it gives them the idea that something's up. So for this, I do throw straight fluorocarbon, and on my braid to leader setup, I throw an extremely long leader. Like I'll throw a 50, 60 foot leader of the FC Sniper 7-pound. That way, whenever I'm fishing, that fish is never going to see the braid. The braid is most of the time never even leaves the reel. But let's talk about these rods really quick. This is my favorite rod, and surprisingly, this is my jerkbait rod. This is one of my absolute favorite jerkbait rods. This is a Megabass Orochi XX. It's a 6'8" medium light, but this rod is not a medium light. This rod has a tip to it, but it's got a lot of backbone. Megabass designed this rod to throw like their Vision 110+1 juniors on and things like that. But reason why I have it rigged up with straight fluorocarbon is because I do throw a jerkbait a lot on it, and it just doubles as an awesome Dimiki rod. I had that paired. This is a Ronin, by the way. I didn't know if I said that or not, but it's a 6'8" medium Megabass Orochi Ronin is what it is. I pair it with a 1000 size Shimano Ultegra. I like Shimano. They got really great drags. They're just a good reel. They're smooth, and it holds about 100 yards of that 7-pound FC Sniper. So that's perfect. They come in 200-yard spool. You know, if you reel 100 yards off on the reel, you've got 100 yards left on the spool to spool it up next time. That's just the way I look at it. The second combo that I throw the Dimiki, and one thing I will say is there's different weights to the drop head. It comes in a quarter, a 3/8, and a half. The size that I use the most is the 3/8. It just seems, I don't want to like going to a quarter because it like takes forever to get down to 60 feet. But when a bass comes up and bites one of these things, if it's got a lot of weight, like the 1/2 ounce, especially in like shallower water, they seem to spit it quicker. And I think the reason for that is bass really, they're not used to eating. A shad doesn't feel like a 1/2 ounce piece of lead. I mean, when a shad is soft, they come up and crunch it. They feel that really heavy lead in their mouth, and they tend to spit it. So a 3/8, I think that's just a really, really good size. I mean, it gets down on 7-pound line quick. I do use a 1/2, but number one size is definitely going to be the 3/8. On the Ronin, I typically throw the 1/2 ounce and the 3/8 ounce. It's a little bit stiffer rod. You can throw a quarter on it just perfect, but it just seems to handle that 1/2 ounce a little bit better. And I always have 2 or 3 different rods rigged up, so this one is the one I always put my 1/2 ounce on. Now, the rod that I throw the quarter and the 3/8 ounce on a whole lot is a little bit higher end rod than the Megabass. This is a G-Loomis NRX. I know you guys are familiar with NRXs. I mean, they're sensitive, but that's really not the reason why I use an NRX for this technique. The reason why I use this particular NRX for this technique is, for one, it's short. And when you're up on the trolling motor and you're trying to drop a bait directly under the trolling motor, having that real short rod gives you a lot of control to be able to drop that bait right on that fish's nose. Another reason why I like using this 802S NRX is because this rod has a really, really soft tip. And that just allows you to fight the fish on that light line without breaking them off. When you're talking 7-pound test and a 5-pound smallmouth, he's going to wear you out if you don't have the right rod, and he is going to win most of the time. But having this rod with a really, really nice tip that comes down into some backbone once you get out of the recoil guides, that really allows you to play those fish on that light line like a champ. And I mean, this rod is extremely, extremely light, so it doesn't wear you out standing there staring at your graph, jigging up and down every day. We'll get into more of how you actually fish a Damiki rig and some of the retrieves. It's not really a retrieve because typically we're fishing this directly under the boat, but I'm going to take you guys out on the water here shortly, and we're going to talk about how we fish it and hopefully do a little bit of graph talk on how to set up your graphs and everything to fish the Dimiki. I typically do it on my Garmin Panoptics, but I'm going to go over 2D as well, so stay tuned for that. Now, if you guys are not asleep, you remember at the beginning of the video I promised you the juice when it comes to a secret for the Damiki rig. Now, when smallmouth are feeding on bait fish, especially pressured smallmouth, they are really particular on a bait. If something's off, if they see line, if the jig head don't look right, if the bait don't look right, if it doesn't act right, they're not going to eat it. When smallmouth are feeding, they rely on a few different things to determine what's food and what is not. One being sight, one being action, and the other being smell. Smallmouth actually use their noses a lot more than a largemouth do. Largemouth feed a lot on reaction, and they're just not as picky as a smallmouth. I guess that's the best way to put it. So to accommodate both sight, smell, vibration, and action of a bait to a smallmouth, I actually use scent on my Damiki rigs. And that's a lot of thing that guys just do not do. The particular scent that I use on my Damiki is Smelly Jelly, and the scent is Shad Glitter. And I'll just open the jar up and shove my tail down in it and swirl it around and get some of that good smelly jelly on that Damiki before I go to dropping. And to me, if a bait looks like a shad, acts like a shad, and smells like a shad, and nothing with it looks funny, then that smallmouth is going to be fooled, and he's going to go to chew your bait. That's what we want. So next time you're at Just Fishing or Watson's, pick you up a little can of that smelly jelly, rub that on your Damiki rig before you go to dropping, and just see if that makes a difference. So after you get you some LedgeHeads and you get you your several different colors of your Damiki Armor Shad, you get the right rod. Like I said, just grab a spinning rod out of the rod box, throw some 7-pound FC Sniper on it, and it's going to work. I just choose these two rods because in my opinion, they're the best. Now we've got all that out of the way, and we've talked about the secret, and we've talked about the different bait colors and things like that. Let's actually head to the lake, and I'll jump up on the trolling motor, and we'll find some fish, and we'll start dropping on them. And I'll actually teach you guys how to work the Damiki rig, how to read your graph. I'll go over my graph settings on both the Livescope as well as regular 2D, because I still use both. There's times when you can't see a fish on the bottom with the Livescope, and I switch over to the 2D and can catch that fish. So if you just have 2D or you just have Livescope, no problem. Most people just have 2D, and that's great. I mean, heck, that's what we've been dropping on for years, and it works wonders. So let's run the lake real quick. We'll put this old Vexus in the water, and we'll See if we can't get on a few. We'll go over how to run the graph, how to run the trolling motor, how to find the fish, and especially how to work the Damiki rig. And we'll see if we can't get a few fish catches for you guys. Stay tuned.
3 hours later.
Ain't it just cool how I can just snap my fingers and we go from the garage to the lake? This editing stuff is pretty cool. So let's get a little rundown of the conditions. It's the following morning. Is 11 degrees. As you can see, I'm pretty bundled up because it is cold. Water temperature is 50.1. Air temperature is cold, like I said, about 11 degrees. It's supposed to be warm today, though. It's supposed to warm up to about 50, right around 50 degrees air temperature today. But what we're going to do is we're going to give a rundown of 2D sonar here in just a minute. I'm going to jump on these old Humminbirds here, and we're going to idle around and see if we can't find us some fish to start dropping on. And after I find a good pot of fish to drop on, I'll jump up there and we'll go over my settings for my 2D and how to be able to see how you can drop your Damiki rig down and see it on your 2D to be able to catch fish using that. So after we catch one on 2D, then we will transition over to Livescope, and I will give you guys all my settings on my Livescope and see if we can't get a cool video of a big old wolf pack of smallmouth chasing my Dimiki up and smashing it. But you guys stay tuned. Let's run up the lake and see if we can't get on a good school. All right, guys, now we're actually up here on my Humminbird Helix 10. I've got it in 2D mode, and we're going to see if we can't get on a couple fish. Real quick, what I'll do is I will, instead of going through the settings in my graph, I'm going to put a picture on the screen that is going to have all of my settings in it. It'll have everything from sensitivity to contrast to modes. It'll have everything. But let's go over the basics really quick. This right here is called the Rts window, or real-time sonar window. And when you're Damiki fishing, that right there is really the only thing that you're going to worry about, because this is the actual sound waves that are going down, and it will show you every little detail in real time what's going on. So as you can see, I'm actually sitting on a school of fish right now. The reason why they're not showing up as arches, like people say on traditionally, is because I'm sitting right over top of them. And since the boat is not moving, I'm never going across the fish, so the sonar is just hitting him in the back. So that's why it doesn't look like a traditional arch whenever you are vertical fishing like this. It'll just look like a line. You see this line? Those are actually fish that are glued onto the bottom there in 50 feet of water. And you see, as the real-time sonar, I'm getting color right here where those fish are suspended up off the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually, I'm going to start dropping on these fish, and I will show you what my bait looks like going down. All right, so if you can see my bait falling right here, see it going down, 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 down. That is actually my bait that is falling. So once that bait gets all the way down to those fish, we'll start to work that fish and see if we can't get him to bite. As you can see, my bait's falling, 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 falling. It's almost right on top of the fish, and we are there. So what we're going to do is now that we're down there on top of those fish with my bait, I'm just going to, I kind of like to dead stick. I know a lot of guys like to jig up and down and do all kinds of crazy things with their Damiki, but I'm not. One of my favorite ways to do it is to just drop it down and dead stick it. And trust me, if he's in the mood, he'll come up and get it. As you can see right here, this is my bait. That's a fish under my bait. And this is the line from my bait. Now, I'm going to jig my bait up and down so you guys can see what I'm talking about. See my bait moving up and down and up and down. Now, everything to the left of this RTS window is all history. That's stuff that's already happened. As you can see, where I jig that bait up and down right here, you can see up and down, up and down. So, now, the only thing, the goal of to catch a fish on this 2D is to find a bait, find a fish like we had right here that come up and look at our bait. Right here's our bait that come down, here's the fish that come up and looked at it. He's done moved off on us now, and right here is my bait, and no fish is under it. A fish would look like another line, just like my bait, underneath the sonar. So, we're going to idle around here a little bit more and see if we can't find us another school to start dropping on. Alright guys, I've actually went around here and found a school of bait to show you guys on the 2D. This is what bait looks like on 2D. It's a big, massive blob, and you can see that the RTS window is lit up, where all that bait is right in the real-time sonar. So, everything to the left, remember what I taught you in the beginning, everything to the left, this is all history, this has already happened. This is your real-time, this is what's happening right now, and as you can see, here's bait. All in that real-time sonar window. Sometimes fish can be up above the bait. Sometimes they'll be down below it. Sometimes they'll actually be mixed up in it. But I actually don't see any fish on this bait school. It's just a big school of bait. And as you can see, I always leave the depth lines on my graph. So we're in 44 feet of water. And right here we got 15, 30, 45 down 60. So I can look and see that that bait is from 30 feet all the way down to 45 feet. That is really, really a helpful information whenever you're trying to pattern fish, because I can run around the whole lake and say, okay, my bait is going to be between 30 and say 50 feet. And that gives you a depth zone to target. Right, here's another school of bait that we can see, but I want to give you guys a helpful hint. 2D sonar is a cone that is emitted from the transducer that is on the bottom of your trolling motor. I have the built-in mega down imaging transducer on my Ultrex, so my transducer is built into the bottom of my trolling motor, directly on the bottom. So, in order for you to be able to see your bait, the biggest thing that I hear a lot of guys say is, oh, I can't see my bait, I can't see my bait. So, a tip for you is to use my settings that I have on my graph. I put the picture up earlier in the video. And then, in order to get your bait directly underneath your transducer so you can see it, make sure that when you're dropping, that you're dropping your bait right beside your trolling motor. I mean, 4 inches to either side of your trolling motor, directly under it. And as you can see, here goes my bait falling down. Falling down, 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 down. You still see it falling all the way almost to the bottom. All the way. Boom, she's on the bottom. So you can see, right here is the line for my bait that fell all the way from the trolling motor, where I dropped it 4 inches to the right side of the trolling motor, all the way down to the bottom. And now my bait is on the bottom over here. So, that's a helpful little hint. If you guys are having a real hard time seeing your bait actually falling, make sure you got your settings right is the first thing. And then the second thing is to make sure you're dropping that Damiki rig right beside your trolling motor. That is the best way to ensure that you're dropping it under the transducer perfectly so you can see it the best. Alright guys, so let's go over a little something else. Once you learn how to find your bait, follow your bait, and keep up with your bait on there, let's talk about how to work a fish. So, whenever you drop your bait down on a line that you think is a fish, and it comes up to look at it, what you'll see is you'll see the line come up off the bottom and come and look at your bait. Like it will start to come up like it's going to eat it, and just usually sit right under it. So, the trick is to never let your bait fall under a fish. Always keep your bait, which is this line right here, above the fish line that comes up on your screen. And the reason why you want that is because fish have eyes on top of their heads. They feed up most of the time. So if your bait rises and the fish follows it, rise it up a little bit farther and stop it. If he comes up a little bit farther, try burning it. That's one of my really cool tricks that I use a whole lot. If he comes up like he's going to eat it but he doesn't, take that reel handle and burn it really quick up towards the surface. And a lot of times burning that really quick up towards the surface will get him, it's like a reaction strike, and he'll dart up real quick and grab it. So that's a trick that I always do, is I always keep my bait above the fish. And if he comes up and looks like he's not going to eat it, just do something different. Drop it, but never drop it below him. And always do something to, like a reaction, like reel up really quick. That's a really good trick to get fish that are looking but aren't committing just yet to commit to that bait. Alright guys, as you can see, I've dropped my bait down. Here's my bait falling. Look at all of those fish right there that I'm dropping in. We should get bit right here, guys. Finally got one of these little rascals on 2D sonar. Look at there. Got that chartreuse and blue Damiki right there in his mouth, son. So let's talk a little bit about how we caught this fish. So we seen this fish on the 2D sonar. We seen my bait line drop down. After we seen the bait line drop down, this fish was glued on the bottom. We seen his line rise up and get the bait. There you go. There's your smallmouth on 2D. Ain't that so cool? Now, since we got one on 2D, I'll transfer you guys up here back to the front and we will watch one eat it on Livescope. That's gonna be awesome. All right, guys, now that we got the boring 2D sonar out of the way, let's take a look at this Livescope. So, let me explain a little bit about this screen, what you're actually looking at. Right here, this is the bottom. This Livescope is shooting a beam straight forward. I have mine set in the forward position. So it's like having an eye that's looking underwater and showing you everything that is 70 feet in front of the boat. That's what I have mine set at. You can set it up to 150 feet and see things like brush piles and things like that, but there's a school of shad right here. Look at that, at the top of the water column. That's what that is a school of shad. But back to what we was talking about. You can see out to about 150 feet with Livescope and see brush piles and things, but really after about 60 or 70 feet, you can no longer see fish. So this 0 right here, this is right directly under the boat. And as you can see, we're seeing up to 30 feet behind the boat and 70 feet in front of the boat. Now, we're sitting in 72 feet of water, so this is the water column. Anything that's going to show up in the water column will show up as signatures like this right here. This up here, this is shad that's in the water that is about 40-50 feet in front of the boat. If you look, we can turn this trolling motor just a little bit. We will actually, looks like there is a fish. Oh yes, there's a fish sitting inside of that. Right. I'm sitting on a school of smallmouth that are chasing shad up here really shallow, so right under the surface. Let's see if I, oh, here we go. See this right here, this little signature? This is a fish that's chasing these shad right here. But just like last time, I'm gonna go ahead and link all of my settings to the Livescope up in a picture so you can write them down. What we're going to do is we're going to troll around here using this Livescope and see if we can't find some fish. And the principle of Damiki rigging on Livescope is so much different than it is 2D. 2D, you have to fish vertically directly under the boat. And you can do that with Livescope as well. But the luxury of Livescope is I can actually pan around like this right here. And look, see, there's the shad. We can pan to the right and see there's nothing. There's no shad, no nothing right there. But we're going to be looking for some signatures down here on the bottom. And what those signatures are, those are going to be smallmouth that are glued down to the bottom. Once we find some here in just a second, I will, there's some more shad. Big old group of shad, really shallow. But once I take and find some bass down here, I will show you guys what bass look like, and then I'll talk about how you can actually use the Garmin Panoptix to Damiki rig on. So stay tuned. All right, guys, so the principle of using a Damiki rig with the Livescope is very similar to that of using it on 2D. So as you can see, we've got a little pot of bait, and it looks like we've got some fish glued down on the bottom there. So all we're going to do is drop our Damiki straight under the boat, just like we would if we was on 2D. As you can see, here it is falling, 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 falling. And it'll go all the way down to the bottom, just like if we was on 2D. The only thing about Livescope is not only can you see things that are directly under the boat in real time, like you can with 2D, but you can see them 70 feet in front of the boat, 30 feet behind the boat, and you can also pan and see fish that are out in front of the boat. So if you see one that's out there 20, 30 feet in front of the boat, he doesn't have to be directly under the boat for you to see him. So what you can actually do is you can pitch your Damiki rig straight in front of the boat and let it fall on his nose, even if the boat is not directly over him. And that is a huge advantage, especially to a tournament angler, because if these fish get boat shy, where they're no longer eating a bait, if there's a boat sitting over them, you can Damiki rig and drop vertically on them from 30, 40, 50 feet away. And to me, that is a huge advantage. So I'll show you guys one more time the principle of dropping on Livescope. If we see a fish down there, all we do, drop your bait straight in front of the boat, just like you would if it was on 2D, and watch it fall. This is in real time. Your bait's falling toward the bottom. Get close to the bottom and stop it. Dead stick, part a little bit of action. Here's our bait down on the bottom. So I'm going to go around here just a little bit and see if we can't find us some fish to catch. And I'm gonna see if I can get a really, oh gosh, we got one on us. We got one on us. Here we go. Here we go. We got him. 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 Look at that. We got him. Oh my God, it was so cool. We got him. I said they're doing an instructional, and I guess that fish read the script, because son, he come right up and ate. There he is on the screen. This is awesome, dude. That's a big one too. There, he's on the screen again. I'm pulling him up. Heck yeah, I swear I hope we got that on camera. That was so awesome. Doing that instructional, and that fish come up and nailed it right off the bottom, exactly like he was supposed to. There he comes through the screen again. I'm going to transition you guys to the other camera, and we're going to land this baby. What's up, guys? That was absolutely awesome. That fish came up on camera, on cue, and ate this Damiki right off the bottom, just like he's supposed to. Looky there. Yes, that's like a 3-pounder, guys. Yes. Looky there. He's got that Damiki down in his belly. So, as you can see, on the Livescope, everything is live. It's happening in real time. You can drop on a fish that's in front of the boat, behind the boat. It is so much cool. That is awesome. So, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I really hope that all these tips that I have given you on both 2D, on the baits to use, and finally on the Livescope will help you become a better Damiki rig fisherman. If you have any questions, do me a favor, put them in the comments below, and please like and share, because this is cool. I'm going to be putting out cool content like this, and you guys want to see it. Got that little Damiki out. Damiki, big smallmouth. Woohoo! That is so much fun, y'all.